Hello everyone, it's Mike from Roxbox90 coming back to you with another video. This one is my experience with the website Cardsphere. Now for those who don't know about Cardsphere, because it is a pretty small site, it's only been around for a few years, it is similar to the infamous PucaTrade, which has been around for a very long time. PucaTrade does something that I think Cardsphere avoids that for me doesn't really work, and that is using its own currency. A lot of games do this, a lot of marketplaces do this. I personally don't like it to convert real money into, quote, fake money or points or gold or whatever you want to call it, no matter what you're doing or playing. I don't really like that notion. So one of the things that really caught my eye about Cardsphere is that they are US currency based. The dollar is the currency of the market. And so Cardsphere is pretty small. It's only about 30,000 users. Has been around since I think 2017. It's a pretty small marketplace, but there's a lot of great stuff about it, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it today. It does a whole lot of stuff. One, the USD is the currency. This is great because it minimizes inflation. Every dollar that comes in can potentially be cashed out. There's no games being played. There's no back-end knowledge required. Inflation is much lower risk. The transaction fee is very cheap. It's only about 1% per transaction, and from a cash in, cash out perspective, cash out is 10% cash out fee or $10, whichever comes first. So the max you would pay is $10 to cash out your money in the system, whatever it would take. No hidden fees, no subscriptions required, no payment methods, languages, conditions and foils, trade sealed product, dispute resolution support, zero maintenance prices. So overall, it does a whole lot of things and doesn't require a whole lot of input from those who first want to try it out, which is great. That's a great way to that's what sucked me in, was I didn't have to do much, which is fantastic. Your first thing you do is you come to the login screen, you sign up, and you set yourself up. It more or less looks like this. You see, this is the home screen of the marketplace, and you have your current dollars. This could be zero when you start, probably will be unless you want to put money into it right away. Notion here is the dollars that you can use to receive cards. It's a push-pull mechanic like PucaTrade, which is why I had used PucaTrade to start the video. It's push-pull, which means you put up what you want, you put the price you're willing to pay for it, and then people can send it to you. You don't need to know who's sending it to you, where it's coming from. They're going to match your condition, and they're going to try to give you that card. And of course, if your price is too high or too low, you will see your results won't be there. You won't actually get anything. They tell you overall, these are the trades, the values of the trades. This is the number of trades going on, more or less in the last 7 days, and then you have the median trade value. This is the percentage of market price. Now they have their own market price. It's comparable to any other marketplace. I'll get to that in a minute. Now, of course, what is market value? We'll get to that in a minute. You can go through the very basics of it, but essentially you look at you have the amount you have or you don't. Within the Explorer, you can look up specific cards, you can look up best offers, deals, and they give you tutorials, of course. I don't really use this very often unless it's a very specific card. Most of the time you go to your send. This is where if you don't have any money and you want to add money, you can of course send your own cards, or you can put your own money into it by going to the ledger, which is just clicking on here, and then there's an add money feature. Sending, that's the primary way if you're trading. You send cards and you get the money value added. And so that's what ends up happening is you look at what people want to offer, you set your filters, of course, where you want to send, hiding offers under a certain basis amount, packages, the packages meaning the group of cards per person that it should maximize for you. Should it be by the total percentage? Should it be by how much money, how many cards are included? There's a few options. Sort packages by quantity or total value, offer, etc. And you can also exclude packages that are too small or too big for your comfort level. And of course you can do a tagging system. I haven't had to actually do this because I'm not doing this seriously. I don't do it with a lot of time and effort. There are many people who do thousands of cards and transactions. I'm sure the tagging helps. I haven't had to really need it. Now, in terms of what these packages look like, very often you set your expectations. It's very different than if you go look on a website like TCG Player, where you have the option of let's say you pick whatever card you're looking for, and within that marketplace, you can see all the sellers that are here. You have your market price, you have your buy list medians, you have your listed medians, and then of course you can go down and you can scroll and see all the different sellers who are selling this card. Now that doesn't really happen on Cardsphere because again, you're not looking to select from a person. Anybody can send you cards and you can send the card to anybody who has the better offers. Rarely does it matter if you know who the person is, unless you've had a bad experience with them. Packages themselves, very often what I see is somewhere between 60 and 80% is a reasonable range. Now, of course, that's for your own comfort level. You might be willing to send chaff cards, 10-cent rares for very little, for a couple of pennies, 5 to 10 cents. You may want to throw them into a larger trade you're doing. There's all kinds of combinations you can do, but I like that you have the options and you can pick for yourself what you want. Now, one of the difficulties I find with the trading is it does take some time because you're working with these packages and filter settings, but they're not as advanced as I think they could be, because you end up here, if you are seeing a certain trade here, you're seeing certain packages and you refresh and you go and look through, and some of them might be gone, so there might not be money for you to, meaning money in someone's account for you to then send them something, so it might just go away. But either way, if you see things over and over and over again at the rate you're looking for, they're not going to just vanish if the person has money in their account. Now, this is a bit difficult because you might say, well, I'm not looking to do Thoughtseize for 65% ever, but there's really no way to remove this trade from here as long as the user has money in their account. So you end up having to scroll potentially through many pages depending on how low your overall offer you're willing to go. If you've gone up to 25% or lower, so your page can go on for quite a while. And it's very hard to select through. Let's say you're willing to give certain cards below 70% or certain cards above 80%. You can't do those levers as easily. So it makes it a little bit time consuming to filter through what you want to send. Now, you don't have to send. You can put in your own money too and just do it. Just buy stuff. And that's what's interesting about this marketplace is you end up getting some pretty good deals and some pretty reasonable options in terms of people sending you cards. You don't actually have to be the top end of the market to always win. So, for example, this is a page of a given card. And this card, World Gorger Dragon, if you were to go to TCG Player and look up World Gorger Dragon, you would say, okay, well, the normal market base price value is about $10, buy list is $4, and the median is about $9.52. So if you went back to Cardsphere and you said, all right, well, what am I looking at here? Well, the market values, it's usually in line with what TCG Player has or most other markets. It's not gonna, if you look at an individual website like Card Kingdom, they have their own pricing measures, and typically they're more expensive than a broader platform or marketplace. This is a marketplace. It's not a seller. It's not a single seller or single shop. So you want to look at the overall price. They're typically pretty close. However, you almost never see 100% offers. Whereas on TCG Play, if you went there to buy, you would have to pay the full up price. So if you scroll down, well, okay, what's the marketplace? What's the options? Who am I competing with to try to get this card first? You end up seeing what's come before. What is the percentage of sale? So in this case, you see the card has fluctuated somewhere between 60 and 90%. That's a pretty big range, but if you average it out, you can see it's somewhere between 70 and 80%, which means if your offer is somewhere between 70 and 80%, you're in pretty good shape. And you're probably going to get someone to send you the card that you want. You do this across the board of things you want, and you end up in a good place. Now, in terms of the top offers, you can also see, well, is anyone else actually in market for this card? Well, it looks like only one person at 43%. So you may not have to put out a 75% offer to get a hit. You might be able to do a 60% or 65% offer. And you would see that some people are willing to send at that rate. And so you can do it and play with this and toggle it. Now, as you can see, this already takes some thinking and time, which is where one of the difficulties with Cardsphere is it is a bit of a time sink. It does take time to figure it out if you're trying to maneuver for a really good deal or just trying to get the cards you need for a deck. It's a slower option. This is what it looks like on a per card basis, but realistically, you put in your halves, you put in what you have so that you can see what people are looking for and know what you can send to someone, right? Because when you put in all your halves list and you look over here, these are the cards you can send to the given users. And then of course your wants are what do you want? And you put in your wants, and that's what people know they can send to you based on the price. I'm not going to go through all the details of what to do. If you're interested in this, you can go and look at the tutorials. They're very simple. I think I used maybe one, and I didn't even need to use it to get comfortable with the website. It just takes a little bit of time. It took me maybe a week to get comfortable with everything. And of course, you can look at sending and receiving. You can say, well, is anything committed and being sent out? These are the things you're sending, which means you have, I think it's 3 days to send your cards out once you agree to send to someone. And then, of course, you have your receiving. What are people sending to you? And once you're all done, you confirm receipt. Now, of course, the question is, what if you're unhappy with a trade or something goes wrong? Then you're able to you're able to dispute, and the dispute will open up a message DM direct with the person who you have the issue with. Generally, I would say over half the time I've resolved just with the person. Whoever it is, for whatever reason, if a card condition is not as agreed, or something got lost in the mail, or something happened, or there was a delay for some reason, typically you can work it out with the person. However, I will give huge kudos to and another big pro is that the admins are very involved, very engaged. So when you're using the dispute setting, they will jump right in and be involved. They want you to handle it yourself, but if they see there's any sort of tension or issue arising, they usually try to help mediate and manage where necessary, especially if there's a real question of, is something counterfeit? Was there actually a worthwhile delay if something took weeks and weeks and shouldn't have taken that long? And they will mediate. Now, I would say that's a big pro and it's a con of the site, which is that with any trading site you have this, you rarely get everything perfect. There's no 100% objective perfect solution to everything when things don't work out, which means that often it's a subjective working context. Your history as an honest and ethical person will really help you in good stead. And if you have a history of doing things that are not exactly appropriate, you're not following site guidelines, then there will be a track record for people who are abusing position on the site or abusing the site channels, and the admins take steps to mitigate and to prevent those people from doing those things. So I would say they're very involved, which makes for a safer environment than you might think in terms of just sending blind cards and receiving blind cards. You think it's a bit of a nerve-wracking thing, but the community and the admins are excellent, so that's a big help. I would say there's the last thing I'll note is, besides for the direct messaging you can also attach images and such, is that you have a vacation mode, which you can of course block anyone from sending you things if you are going away or something's coming up, and you don't want people to just send you stuff out of the blue when you're not ready for it. So that's the basis of the site, and those are a lot of the pros and cons. The currency, the low fee, the easy cash out options, the admins being very involved and fair, the community being overall pretty great. I've had very few issues using the site for numbers and numbers of months, and it's very convenient because you don't have to be very involved. You can put money in and people will send you stuff like any other marketplace. It might take a little longer. You might not get what you need right away, but typically the prices are reasonable and you end up in good shape. Now, some of the, I won't call them cons outright because they're not, some of them are works in progress, but I will note there are some things I wish were in the site already or could be better about the website. One is the market size, and that is a reality that you're dealing with maybe 30,000 users, and this is a global enterprise. So you're talking all countries. US, you're in pretty good shape, and you're probably going to be able to find people to send you cards you're looking for if your prices are reasonable. But you will not get it, I think, as fast as PucaTrade. At least talking to people who have used it, I have a few friends who've used it consistently, and they've told me that because of the PucaTrade community size, they were able to get stuff very quickly if their rates were competitive. I would say Cardsphere, if your rates are competitive, you can get stuff very quickly, but you will probably still get it slower than some of the bigger marketplaces. So that's one thing I think I'm hoping will grow over time, and the core group here is very good, but it's a reality that it's a small market. Second thing I'd mention is that it's a time sink. It will take a lot of time to micromanage, especially if you have a very large halves list, specific things, and you're trying to micromanage the pricing and give the best offer, but also get a good deal. If you're really playing with it, you'll find that it could take some time to get what you want, and because people can send a package of anything, if you have 1,000 wants, you might get 4 or 5 that aren't as important to you, and some other ones you wish you had first would come first, and then you play with the pricing and so on and so forth. So it just takes a lot of time to adjust your settings to get exactly what you want. I would almost suggest having a smaller wants list that are the priority, and then putting at a very low rate offer things that aren't as priority to you. Not to flood the market with low priority offers, but if people see below a certain amount, they're not even going to appear, because like in this case, I have 60%. If I put things in my wants list that were 30%, most people are not going to see it because they're not going to be looking at offers that low. And every once in a blue moon, you'll get an amazing deal where someone will send you a card at a very low rate, but typically it just gives you a way to have your cards that are less priority on your wants list. Things you don't want today will be probably not sent or very, very low rate of sending, and things you really want will have a higher priority and will get sent first. So that's what I've been doing to mitigate the time sink element and just trying to manage my list. Condition guidelines. They have a condition guide on the site, and I would read it very carefully if you do sign up with Cardsphere, just so you know what to expect. There are no mint condition cards, and generally grading is on the flexible side. You can make a note saying I'm very strict and I don't want to yada yada. And yet even you let things go a little bit to some degree, especially for things that aren't that costly, smaller cards, cheaper rares, things under $1 or $2, you don't make a huge deal of it. It's not worth it. For very big things though, it's fair to follow the guidelines. And if someone is calling you on something that is an argument over condition, that's where the admins can step in and help manage the process and say, all right, well, you guys are really going at it, trying to figure out if this is near mint or slightly played or moderately played, and there's a big gap in discussion here. All right, we'll help you guys come to a settlement that will work out, hopefully, whatever it would be. But make sure you read the trading guidelines and understand that the guidelines are subjective. But in their year 3 review, they did mention that they've been having some trouble accounting for Wizards Project Booster Fund and Mystery Boosters and all the variants and stuff. So they've been working on a lot of the core infrastructure of the site, which has taken away from some of the user-facing feature development. This means that some of the user-facing options that maybe even things that I'm concerned about here on this list are just on the list, and they'll get to them eventually. At the end of the day, they want the site should be functional and current to what's going on in the marketplace. So I'm glad that they took the time to do that and make sure the site's set up optimally for that. The other difficulty I find is that where other marketplaces has a median and you can see across a number of sellers and get a sense of where the market is, one of the challenges is that there's no way to see. For Cardsphere, there's no way to see, if you were to click on a card, there's no way to see how does this market price compare to other marketplaces, and there's no way to see in terms of the proportion here how close these numbers are to buy list, for example, from other sites. So it makes it where you kind of have to toggle if you're trying to figure out if the deal makes sense, if it's a good one, if the percentage is good. You really have to toggle with other platforms and marketplaces to figure that out. So if you're trying to get something between buy list and what you would pay for your base price on the card, so in this case it's $7.45 and the buy list at $4.42, so you'd ideally want to get somewhere between the buy list price and here in terms of what you're paying for a card, and that'd be the best possible solution for you. Then you won't be able to do that without actually checking the cards and checking other marketplaces. There's no option to see that. It's all within its own marketplace. And so that's something that it's just more time consuming and a bit tedious if you're trying to look for good deals and trying to check prices to make sure it makes sense. And the last thing I'd say is that whereas it's true that the deals themselves, 80% of trades fall within this range, I would say that good deals are a bit of a unicorn if you're not using any tracking tools, if you're just going to the sends page and just looking for what's out there at a given, checking a couple times a day. Very rarely will you find a great deal. You'll find good deals, but you won't find great deals very often. And that is largely because there is a community here involved, and there is a Discord, and there is a Reddit, and other things where you can go and kind of work out trades or work out with people in a more real-time fashion, and then work out trades. And if someone wants to give a really good price, they rarely will just list it until they know more about it, especially if it's an expensive card. They want to know a little bit more about what the card is, what it looks like, what they're sending it, and I find that a lot of the stuff from the community bleeds into the trading interface. And you may want to just trade privately. You may not want to go onto this page. And so this will be kind of like storefront where people will put out offers, but the best trades usually will happen behind this trade privately function. And I think that's how most communities function over time. The biggest sellers, the best sellers, the most consistent users will be able to work out the best deals with people who they're comfortable with, and they know the risk is lower. And the last thing I'll mention, which isn't a con, it's a reality of any trades or any buying or any magic, in fact, which is counterfeiting. Cardsphere's done a lot to manage counterfeiters, and you can raise it within dispute and talk to the admins about it if you really think something is counterfeit. But I would say if you're going to be trading online anyway, if you're going to be buying online anyway, you should be looking at this site, which is detectingthefakes.com. And it teaches you how to identify counterfeit magic cards without ripping them. Now, this is really important because you'll see a lot of older guides to detecting fakes, and a lot of them will suggest bend test, water test, rip test, all these tests, which are terrible tests and usually will damage or outright destroy the card. And you do not want to do any of these things. Checking cards, these are the better options. I will, of course, post this in the description of the video. You guys can check it out for yourself. At the end of the day, you're probably going to ask me, this video is pretty long. What do I actually think of Cardsphere? I think it's amazing. I really love it, even though it's a small site. I love that my money is real money. I love that I can cash out anytime, and that if were the marketplace to fold tomorrow, I could get my money back. I love that you have engaged admins and an engaged community. I love that it's some of the best prices you can find out there, and you don't even need to send trades. You can just put in dollars and put your wants, and people will send you cards, and you will usually get at a much better rate than if you were to go buy direct. It would take some time. Don't do it for something you need for your F&M, post-COVID. Don't assume you'll get the cards very quickly, but if you're competitive priced in the marketplace, which is usually better than other marketplaces, you should end up in a pretty good shape. And my experiences have been all good with this site for quite a while. Many, many months using this site has been all good. So I would suggest, if you haven't and you are interested in this kind of thing, check it out. Okay, so I think that wraps it up. Thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. If you have any comments or anything you want to say about Cardsphere or marketplaces in general, or any comments on my comments, please let me know down below in the comment section. As always, Roxabox90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.